Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. And remember, if you find yourself sitting on a comma in your life, you can also talk to me without a microphone. To explore coaching with me and getting off the comma in your own life, check out my information and book a call with me at offthecomma.com. And I'm also doing something different. I'm curating my own sponsor community, local businesses and professionals who I handpick and who align with our vision here. Be sure to check them out, learn more about them on my website and my YouTube channel. In the meantime, let's get into this week's conversation. All right, we are back with another exciting episode of Off the Comma and another opportunity for us to experience another amazing human being and to hear her story today and to hear about her experiences. And another opportunity for us to gain some insight and potentially some wisdom or just some connection with another person. And for some of us, this person will be from another side of the planet. So we're very fortunate this week to be talking to someone from another country. Our guest, Gitte Madelaire, is coming to us from Denmark. It's very late her time. So we're very grateful for her to stay up and record with us today. But it supports this vision that I had of not only being able to hear all kinds of voices, but to hear voices from all over the planet. And we're slowly getting there. I would love to see a day where this podcast has people calling in from anywhere around the globe. So with that said, let's get into Gitte's story. I want to introduce her, give her an opportunity to introduce herself, and let's dive in and see what kind of a comma she was sitting on. So, Gitte, thank you for being here again. Thank you for being up so late at your time tonight. We want to get to know a little bit about you before we get into your story. Why don't you start by telling us how would you like to be known? And then you can tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of hobbies, interests, work, or what have you.
Yeah, how would I like to be known? I would like to be known as a happy and intuitive, visionary, trustful person.
Okay.
At least that's how I see myself. But also something that I would like to be perceived as from the other side of the table. I'm also sitting here in Denmark, so I'm in Scandinavia, outside Copenhagen. I am a mom. I have 3 sons, grown-up sons, and I'm married to Renee. We have been living in different kinds of the world. So we've been living in Sydney, in Australia, and we've been living in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. My son now lives in the US, in Chicago.
Mm.
So, and we have a daughter-in-law from New York. So we are sort of a mixed family and has been living all over the world. So my parents got divorced and my dad lived for 20 years in Africa. So it's a funny thing that I feel like a real homey person, but at the same time also one who is confident in the world, sort of outside. Outside your borders, which is, it's a funny mixture, about being a little bit introvert and at the same time also extrovert in that, I just take on the world. So that's a little bit about me. I have an education from a business school, and I've been working in corporate life until 2 years ago. where I decided that I wanted to do something else. And so now I am on my own with my own company. And I decided to write a book 5 years ago, or I was told to write a book. That's the right way to say it. And I thought, I'm not a journalist. What should I? I cannot write a book. What should it be about? Then 2 years, 1 year later, on what was it, 2020, just when Corona happened, or I decided, yes, I am going to write this book because I have an idea of what it's going to be about. And then I decided also, okay, I need to do something else in my life. And that's where all this, comes in very nicely with what's it's all about with my off the comma thing.
Good.
So
well,
yeah.
let me jump in for a moment, and I will jump in from time to time, just like for clarifications or questions or what have you. But it sounds like, for someone like myself who is very much a lover of travel and is just now, at the time of this recording, embarking on kind of a nomad journey myself and so forth. So your multinational family who has lived all over the world or in different places in the world, that certainly is exciting to me. And I so appreciate you bringing in this element of you can be an introvert and also get out into the world and experience life. So I'm curious to see how that's going to tease out in your story a little bit. But before we get into your story here in a few minutes, we'll get into the same 5 questions that we ask every episode. Gitte, I always like to start with this next question for every guest. As you think ahead to the next 40 minutes or so of our recording and you're telling your story, what intention would you have for yourself right now?
What intention would I have for myself? Just to enjoy the moment of telling not a story in that sense, but telling my story from my soul, to be, hopefully inspiring to others, to connect with others, to be helpful to others, like so many other stories have been helpful to me. So yeah, I think that's and to enjoy, it's also a joyful, it's a precious time also to be invited to tell your story. So it really is a joy. It's like I've made myself comfortable here in my chair, and looking forward to it. So it's a joyful thing. Yeah, it is. It's uplifting.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. My intention is to support you in accomplishing your intention. Obviously, create the space for you to be able to share your story, and that there will be people out there who will hear your story and they'll see a little bit of themselves in you or your story and feel a little bit more connected, a little less alone, and in the best of cases, maybe even feel inspired or empowered to go and do something that they've been wanting to do. So with that said, let's jump into the first question. The first question is, Gitte, where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
I think there are 2 special commas that I would pinpoint in my life. And the first one is in my early 20s, where I was, as I mentioned before, my parents got divorced. And not that it was sort of a bad divorce in that sense, but it made me think a lot about what is life about as an adult. And also being able, or I had to be quite early responsible. I have a younger sister, but be responsible for, taking care of things in the house after they got divorced and all that. So the first comma was, how do I find my way through life? And as they couldn't find, it or get it to work, their relationship, I thought it must be important to find love in some way, because then life as an adult must be more, happier or more joyful. And so I really wanted to find love. And I did. And I'm still married to Renee. So that thing about following your heart and listening to your heart became, I can see that looking back, sort of something that was crucial to my life throughout it. Then another comma, which was a little bit different, was in my 50s, where I lost my job. And it made me able to get a break, because suddenly you don't have a job. And that really was a change maker for my ability to both listen within and be able to also create really a new path in my life. So what it was, I can't say it was a shock, because I could sort of see it coming, because it's also had a lot to do with technological advancements. And, you are in corporate life, your companies have to change because of technology, and, they're cutting costs and whatever. But still, if you are a little bit too slow in reacting to it, then you're suddenly stuck, or you're maybe in a situation where you've lost your job, as I was. So these are my two commas that has been really, crucial for my life.
If I may, I'd love to kind of reflect a few things back. And where I reflect back, Gitte, there's just my reflection. So if anything is, no, that's not correct or accurate or doesn't land right, always, by all means, correct me. But I'm noticing, as you're describing these two particular commas, in both situations, there's seems to be an element of loss. In the one, the loss of your parents' relationship or the two-parent household, the second one, the loss of the job. And your response in both of these situations is still about going in, which you were very clear about, going within, listening to your heart, listening within. I'm just curious, if the element of loss there is significant in the story or not.
Oh, I think very much so. And I haven't realized until maybe within the last 8 to 10 years how much loss it really is or has been. So the loss of not being as a child or as a teenager, the loss of not being seen, heard, or understood. Or having to be a grown-up before you are not even a grown-up, or having to be a parent for a parent, or having to, or the loss of losing yourself, really. And then that's one sort of the private part of it. And then throughout my adult life, until I got a little bit more self-conscious and aware. But then the sadness or the sorrow or whatever, you in a way you lock it, or you put it down in your pressure cooker, and suddenly, after some decades, so in my case, the lid comes off, and you could say, okay, it's not losing your job is just the thing that happened. But what it triggered was that I was able to then be quiet, or it gave me an opportunity to be quiet. And I managed to sit down literally just to be quiet, not even meditating, but just sit and be quiet and just sort of, I don't know, surrender to the quietness, to nothing. And that had a really healing or releasing effect on me and I was able to do, listen within. So yes, there's a lot of loss in it.
Yeah.
Primarily losing myself. And then finding myself again. And that is really so joyful. To be able to find yourself again before you die. What a great thing that is.
Yeah. You're going to, I hope you find this as interesting as I do. I was recording an episode yesterday and we literally got into that same conversation. This element of when you're with yourself, when you're alone with yourself, when you're quiet. I mean, I think we were talking about it a little differently, but ultimately it was about the whole, as you get older, as you get wiser, and as you come to those places of being alone or isolation, the difference later in life, if you allow it to be, is that even though you're alone, you're not, because you find yourself there. And that it's a whole different kind of relationship than feeling alone when you're younger sometimes.
Yeah, it's now I don't know. I think I've always enjoyed being alone. I can see that from photos. But living or growing up in a sort of very extrovert society, and the increasing noise for whatever reason, but I can see that the need for just being in my own company has always been there. And I enjoy my own company. And I don't feel well, that's easy said now that you have your family, and I don't feel alone. Of course, I'm privileged to have a family and all that loves me, and vice versa. But the fact that finding out that it's not really your loved ones that is going to make you feel loved. It's primarily yourself first, and then icing on the cake, all the others. At least that's how I see it. We can run around, try to find the love, or get mom and dad to accept you, or whatever, or your children, or whatever. But still, it's really coming back to ourselves, that I have the responsibility to love myself first, and then I'm able to give to someone else. So that has really. I worked a lot on that one for the last 10 years. Yes.
Okay. I want to, if I may, let's jump into the second question, and then I have another question I want to explore if it kind of flows right. But the second question is, as you look back at these commas that you were sitting on, what did that create for you?
Well, the first comma created that I started to follow my heart, and one thing is, yes, I found my love and my then husband. So that created, you could say, safety, a sort of some kind of safety and a base for that I felt loved, and I was loved, and everything, and also we created a family. So, but what it also did was that I did try to follow my heart also in other relationships. So I So when is it that a relationship gives you energy, and when is it doesn't give you energy? So are you in a relationship where it's where you can just sense that, I don't really feel I have the time or the energy to go and visit, those people? Or of course it's different if it's some people in your family, but throughout your life, you have friends and acquaintances, and you keep having the relation with them, and then suddenly I realized, some of them, it's not giving any of us anything. At least it doesn't give me anything. So it was also a matter of, it sounds a little bit brutal, but tidying up, but being, who are you going to spend your time with, or what are you going to spend your time on? Yeah, I've been more and more conscious of that. And I've been conscious about also being able, especially in relationship to my mom, but being able to sort of put down my, set my barriers. This is how far I will go, or this is when I say no. You have made your decisions, and that's fine. But we all have to live with the consequences of our decisions. So being able to be more outspoken and direct. And then what did this thing about losing my job, or it really made a lot of change. I think also because I was so ready. Because coming back to that, it has been building up, both the frustration of me being in something that maybe wasn't quite what was giving me energy. So going back to having to have relationship in your personal life where you use your energy correctly, you can sometimes feel stuck in your own or in your job. And why are you stuck there if you don't feel you get any energy from it, or you are not even able to maybe give the same energy? Or
actually, can I jump in for just a moment? I know I'm interrupting you, but this is actually a good time, because I said earlier that there was this other question that I wanted to ask if it flowed the way it does, and I feel like this is going in that direction. So this happens in many episodes, right? As you tell your story, we're all listening. And as humans, we're like, oh, yeah, I know what she means. I get it. And we're making assumptions based on our own experiences. And there's always an opportunity, it seems, where it's like, wait a minute, you shared something with us that we could easily roll past, but I'd love to go one layer deeper to really see what it's like for you. And so what I would love to explore with you is, as you talk about this listening within, this being able to, I want to look at the words that you said, being more conscious, being able to set boundaries, or as you said, tidying up, for example. What is, this isn't going to be an elegant question. What is that like for you? Like, how do you know you're listening within? How do you know that, the message that's coming from in there is clear? Like, what's that process like for you? How do you know that you're hearing the messages from within?
I can feel it in my energy. So over the last 5-6 years, I have both consciously, on purpose, but also unconsciously worked with my energy. And when I'm saying energy, it's then we've got to understand that everything is energy. So I'm talking about energy frequencies. And I sort of started to see that, if you're not happy in a job, your stomach is, tightened. I started to get some eczema, on my skin, and there's a lot of different signs that something is not right here. Your body is starting, so you are not feeling comfortable, and you are, or I didn't, then maybe you can't sleep as you want to, and you start to have thoughts about, this is not the right thing to do, or so that whole process about something that's very physical, and I thought I had to do something else, but at the same time, quite stuck in that, I cannot just, drop it. And what should I do apart from that? Then what happened is that I started to be quiet, but also started to meditate or learn how to meditate. And that really slowly, the combination of at the same time being quite frustrated about being in the job, and then starting to be quiet, starting to do some yoga or breathing exercises, starting to meditate, that combination of increasing something that was actually good for me, and it kept me coming back to do it constantly, more and more. And then suddenly I was able to make the change. And one thing that really made me understand that there was something that was not just the normal basic stuff like sleeping and eating, and was that this meditation, being quiet together with the breathing, made me sort of click into what I call my soul energy. So it was like I was, connecting to something that was bigger than me. And then you get like some extra help, some friends, some whatever, you can, your friends up there or wherever they are in the energy, they are like helping you. So you get some guidance. And as I'm a native Danish-speaking person, I would expect that I would get some guidance in Danish, but no, I get it in English. So I always know that I always get some words. Some people might, get pictures or figures or colors or whatever. But it made me realize that there's something bigger than I understand, and I have then dared to lean into it, and I have understood that that is something that I should also work more with, and that has now been sort of also what I have written a book about. But it's really it's actually much more about how can we evolve our potential from surrendering to this potential that we actually have, that we have not released, or we put or in the pressure cooker.
I'd love to reflect a couple of things back that I'm hearing, and even I'm kind of taking from what you shared and resonating, is because when people talk about, listening within, or your gut, or your intuition, or your higher power, or your inner wisdom, or there's so many ways that we have this conversation. Different types of people will have this conversation. And what I'm noticing in your story, and I've heard it in other stories too, is it's not always, although it sounds like you've developed into it being that it can be kind of clear. It can come in a fairly straightforward manner, but it wasn't always that way. And that usually it started with some type of a physical sensation. If you weren't able to tap into it mentally, there was a physical thing. And I think a lot of times people are I'm speaking anecdotally, but I think, or maybe I'm talking about myself. Like in the past, there were a lot of times that it's like, oh, I had to wait for the magic sign, or like expected it to be as clear as a well-written letter, right? And so you can spend time being frustrated, waiting for a sign or a signal that was already there, right? And so what I'm hearing you describe is, okay, sometimes I had to get my attention because I started feeling discomfort, or there were literally physical, negative manifestations, like you described the eczema, right? You also described, feeling it in your stomach and tension and so forth. And that what I hear you describe and others describe is maybe you don't even know what it's trying to tell you, but you pay attention to something that's not right. And then, like, let that be the signal to stop, put the brakes on, get quiet. You talked about being more intentional with it through breath work, yoga, meditation. But even if you just get quiet, it's the getting quiet that allows you to then wait for and recognize the message. And it's usually there, isn't it? Right? It's there. And when you recognize it, you're kind of like, yeah, I was kind of already, I knew that too. But I love how what you're describing isn't some kind of magic power that only a few people have, or that a certain percentage of the population is automatically inclined towards. Our bodies will tell us, and our body represents everything that you talked about: higher powers, friends up there, as you described. And the last thing I'll reflect, I know I'm rambling, is, and I love also too, you're one of the folks that I've talked to who has described that over time, then there was an even clearer giveaway as to how you would know that was the right voice to listen to, because you said, because that message comes in English. And I've heard people say other things like, oh, it always shows up in a certain kind of thing, or it's always a certain type of animal, or what have you. And I just love that. I love that.
And it's, I know it also when I very often, daily ask for, what is the energetic message today? Sort of, and I know you can think with your head, but I know I know it's right when I hear something completely different, because we are so tuned into thinking about it. Our rational mind controls us. So, so, so the good thing about it is that when I hear something that is sort of completely different, different words, or that I wouldn't have, thought of or used, then I know that, yeah, then I'm on the right track. But what I find fascinating also is that it's a little bit like connecting the dots. So you can get your messages in so many different ways. And if I am, or if we are not quiet, then you don't see or hear or sense these messages, because the messages are all over. You'll get them in lots of ways. It could be I talk to you and there's a special word, or you say something and it really is a dot that I have to fit into my sort of way forward in a way. So it's in so many ways. That is it's a bit of a sport, connecting the dots.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because you can go from, oh, there it is again, to, wow, that seems to be showing up a lot, to, oh my gosh, that was the missing piece.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then, and also because then you have, like maybe you have 2 days where life is just happening too fast. And I literally know, okay, now you're off the wrong track. I have balance and consciousness are my two key words.
Mm,
So now, Gitte, you are not doing well. You need to get back on track. So because otherwise you miss these signals,
hmm
and and that's one thing, but also it doesn't feel nice in your body or in my body because the flow or the energy is off balance.
mm.
So that's another thing.
Okay.
But it's not with I'm not sort of starting to hit myself or blaming myself. It's just okay. You just need to go back and center yourself. So just call back your energy, because if it's flying out all over the place, or not being centered.
Mm.
So yeah.
I'd love to move to the third question, and by all means, kind of continue to flow back and forth as you
Mm.
continue to tell the story as well. The third question is, as you look back at these, in your case, two commas that you've described to us, what have you learned about yourself? Oh,
I would say I've learned everything. Everything, well, it's, you keep evolving, but I'm so grateful that that these things happened to me, and that I was able to be still and surrender into, and that it could open up. So, I learned that uh, I suddenly realized there's something called ego, and what is it? And maybe I'm a too, centered around my ego, and what is this about soul, or at least how that's how I just use the words. So how can I make a better dance
mm,
or tango with the ego soul? So that's what I've learned, and I've learned to take responsibility for myself. I mentioned the thing about putting down your foot in relation to, for me, it was my mom, and but it's also others. But sometimes we have so many difficulties in saying no, or saying this is where my
hmm
boundaries are, and that's what I've been very good at improving, and realizing how an enormous power there is when we do, or when I do it, and
mm,
when others do it too, because it's sort of it's like shredding a lot of things, just like with an onion or whatever. You take all the leaves off, or you get into the center.
hmm
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I keep learning. It's because it's constantly, you can, like I mentioned, okay, you are off track maybe for 2 days. Why is it that is happening? How can
mm,
you make sure that you can still blow in life? You can go all the way to one side, but not break. You can
hmm
have a project that's taking you a lot of attention and a lot of hard work, and that is can be okay for a period of time, but it shouldn't sort of break you. And you can also be very comforting for other people if someone is sick, but you cannot save the world, so you cannot do that to everyone. So
mm,
how are you able to balance your energy without losing yourself? So that's
mm.
really what I keep learning.
Yeah.
But I'm pleased with where I am at the moment.
I love that. And let's jump into the fourth question. And I feel like you've already kind of answered this, but feel free to add more that you haven't already said. And the fourth question is,
Mm.
as you look back at these two commas, what has changed for you as a result of them?
Well, I've changed in the sense that I have found my way in life, what I call the meaning with why am I here?
Mm,
Not as a daughter and as a mother and as a wife only, but also what is it that I was supposed to do here? And it is to inspire to better balance and consciousness.
mm.
And it was also to write this book, even if I'm not a journalist or I didn't in the beginning knew what it was all about. But it is about energetic leadership, and it is about building a bridge to or with corporate life or the business world. So how is it that we can improve our business world so it's fitted for humans?
Well, and it also seems like, and tell me, if I'm wrong, but, you know, by you living through this way of being, then you're also kind of modeling it to others. Whether you had ever written a book or not, you being the person who does notice when your energy is off, you do listen within, you do take the time to be quiet and hear the messages and then adjust or adapt what you need to do according to those messages. It's not just serving you, but it's also something that you're showing others. And then, of course, you as a human actually took the step to write a book about it and to bring it into practice as well. So
Mm,
it seems that that's also a part of it.
mm. Yeah, it's a it's not you can talk about things from a rational perspective, from your head, which is it's not that it's bad, but it's really difficult if you're going to talk about energetic leadership from your head and you don't understand it with your your whole body. So I think, okay, I needed to live this whole part of my life and understand the business world and work in it and be a leader in it and have my frustrations and have these off the comma situations and whatever. In order, it is part of my journey leading into what I'm doing now. So it's sort of really uh, like a volcano that's erupting in a
Mm,
positive way.
hmm.
So, or the lid of the pressure cooker is coming off. And also, it fits very nicely into my my sons are out and have their own lives, and so I'm ready to sort of do that part
Mm.
of things in my life.
I love the use of the volcano metaphor because so many people would say, "Oh my gosh, that's so destructive, and why would you use that?" But actually, what volcanoes do is they remake,
Mm,
right? I mean, may not necessarily be good for folks who are living in the shadow of it or what have you, but in the global view, a volcano is remaking,
yeah.
right?
No, well, I think
Yeah.
it is that uh, the planet demands new leadership.
Hmm.
So, and we will see some eruption. Whether
Mm.
it's I'm erupting as a person, and but we will see it in companies and in societies, and yeah, but
Mm.
we will we will go through some turbulence, and but we'll there's a lot of good stuff on the other side. Uh,
It seems also, you didn't say these words, but it seems also that there's an invitation to all of us, whether it's this story that you and I are sharing right now, this metaphor that you're using, but any one of us could be affected or harmed by these eruptions, to use your metaphor. And yet it's also an invitation that each of us could initiate our own eruptions too.
Mm.
We don't necessarily have to be victimized by change in the world. That's a choice.
It is, and I think we have been for too long a period. Well, it's part of evolution, but we've been custodians. So some of us are maybe more rebels. I am, but I'm still a nice and quiet rebel. It's not happening sort of in an unfriendly way. But some of us might have to speak a little bit louder or do something that is a little bit maybe pioneering in other sense. So yes, and we are seeing it. We are seeing it with the quiet quitting. You can still have a work and quit by not being really working as you would have been if you were really empowered and engaged and everything. So we are being rebels in different kinds of way.
We here in the United States, I don't know why this metaphor came up, but in the real estate market in the United States, particularly with residential home buying, I hear realtors that I know talk about how, when the market's been up for a long time and then suddenly it takes a downturn and homes aren't selling and they're not worth as much, realtors will always say something very kind of like positive, but the market's just correcting. It was inflated, it was too inflated, and it's coming back to where it should be, and it's right sizing and so forth. And so that seems to come to mind based on what you were saying, is like the world's going through some correction. Like it's just we're sort of adjusting back to something that may be a little bit more normal or natural.
Yeah, or maybe I don't. Are we realizing how big a shift we are going into? I don't think we are. There's both. There's so much potential that we can unfold, but there's also so much that we still have to learn about both energy in, how are we going to create energy, electricity and all that, but also how are we going to use energy frequencies like we've been talking about now, but also how is energy frequencies going to be used as modality, as a health thing, not just you doing it yourself, but how can we actually use energy frequencies in different ways? So energy as words and businesses and human development is it's going to be so interesting. I want to live for 500 years now.
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that. And Gitte, this is such a topic that I would love to talk more on. And unfortunately, our time is going to be coming to a close here. So let me ask you the last question, and then we'll start to move into kind of the closing items here. The fifth question is, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
Well, it looks it looks like, not just looks like, it feels like bliss, and it feels like peace, and there's a certain calmness, and there's so much meaning and fulfillment, and at the same time there's an enormous power, sort of unstoppable power, that creates a lot of also both joy and abundance, but not in the old way, in a much more coherent and healthy way. So, like I said, I think I said it early on, I really feel truly happy where I am right now, that I'm managed to get where I am. I think I have so much more to do, but I'm grateful for where I'm right now. That those commas I got off. They came, but I got off them, and I surrendered and listened.
Mm.
I was quiet.
Gitte, thank you for sharing that with us. And, as we look at your story that you've shared today, and folks who might be interested or curious to hear more about you, what you're up to, the book that you've written, if people wanted to reach out and connect with you, where would they find you? We'll put all of your links, obviously, in the show notes so people can click on those. But, what are some of the best places to connect with you?
Well, my website. So my website is called energeticleadership.eu for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book, you can buy that one anywhere where you buy books, amazon.com. And if you want the audiobook, it's called kobo.com, KOBO.com. So reach out. Wonderful. And I will be happy to talk.
Nice. All right. And last thing we'll do before we close, it's something we do in every episode. I call this section acknowledgments because we are about storytelling. We are about lifting up voices. And your story wouldn't really be complete if we didn't give you an opportunity to lift up somebody or some other cause or organization that mattered to you. So this is a chance for you to boost or give a voice to, or just kind of acknowledge others in your circle who are important. That could be causes, charities, organizations, other creators, or just people who matter to you and your family or in your circle of influence. So who would you like to acknowledge today?
I want to acknowledge those that have, all my loved ones, because they have been there and all the time, both my family, my mom and dad, and Renee and my boys, because I couldn't have done and created what I've done and be the one that I am. But I also would like to acknowledge our ancestors. And then I am not even, it's not just in my family, but in our ancestors in general, because we all stand on each other's shoulders. So we might find that we have a lot of dark spots at the moment, but on the other hand, we have also created a lot of very good things and a very good societies in other ways. So our ancestors, and I would like to acknowledge also the native people of the planet, whether it's the Native Americans or the Aborigines or the Eskimos or whoever, but because there's a lot we have forgotten from the natives and that we have to relearn. So, and I want to acknowledge all the leaders and all the human who are leaders in their own life. You can do a lot and you can do it right now, and it doesn't take much time or money. You can just be quiet and grateful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gitte. And thank you again for staying up late with us this evening to record, and very much look forward to see what comes next for you. And I wish you a wonderful weekend ahead.
Thank you very much for inviting me on your show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. What an honor it is for me to witness these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way too. Think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? What inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. Surprises can reveal themselves to you when you do this. And if you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. Let's spread the word. Let's continue to build connection. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode, follow the podcast here on this platform and social media at Off the Comma, and feel free to comment and interact with these posts and episodes. Check out my website for workshops, events, and my sponsor community. I'm covering the costs of production by curating my own sponsors who align with our vision. Be sure to check them out. They're all powerful people and businesses. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.